You're good to go.
Oh, good, thanks. All right.
Hey, Kevin, make sure the volume's up enough so people can hear people talk today, please.
Listen to the other day.
Make sure the volume's up in here so people can hear people talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Moore,
Present.
Councilman Iacili,
Here.
Councilwoman McNamara, Councilman Pell,
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
Thank you.
It's out of order for some reason on this sheet. I'm sorry, because I caught it as soon as I said it out loud.
This morning, we're starting with a presentation with respect to the proposed plan for Love Lady Park in the Village of North Haven. And with us is the mayor of the Village of North Haven, Chris Fiore. Why don't you come on up and join us? And we also have Jackie Fenlon and Dan McCormick from our CPF department.
Okay,
So
thank
welcome,
you.
everyone.
And Supervisor, I do want to give a background to the parcel and the purchase, you know, like in conjunction with this
Stand there if you want.
presentation.
Be at the podium.
So,
Let's
once we
wait
get
for everyone to
situated.
get situated.
Now,
No, there is no easel, but that's okay, I can hold these.
There's an-
well, if you lay it down flat, they can actually zoom in on them as well. But, Mayor, if you have a seat, I want to give a background to the purchase of the park and, you know, how this came about. There's a bit of a history here. This is, I guess we're calling it Love Lady Powell Park, but, you know, we don't have the name
Working title.
just yet. It's called Love Lady
Can I
Powell.
interrupt you for a second? Why don't you put that in the chair so you can sit?
Councilman Pell is asking you to put that in the chair so you can have a
You
seat.
can put it,
Oh, okay.
no, you
There's a
can
chair
put
over
a chair
there.
right there, that you can sit right there.
Because I'd rather stand if you don't mind. Is that all right with you?
As you wish, Mayor.
If you wish to.
It just works better.
Okay.
Because there's 65 of you here.
I don't want to block the people behind you who are watching you.
They don't get to see it.
Yeah.
You know
We
what,
don't
if
have
you,
the Zoom.
Jackie, if you move over and Mayor, if you sit in the middle and you put it flat, we can all see it.
Well,
Okay.
they may
And then
want
they
to be
can zoom in
together.
on it too.
Okay.
Do you want to be next to Dan? I mean, there may
just-
be a
yeah,
reason, I don't know.
I always want to be next to my
Papers, you know,
partner.
going back and forth.
Yeah.
Right.
So where
I
are you
think
gonna
they,
sit?
I think they want to do.
Just
in
put
the
it flat
middle.
right here and then you can sit in the middle chair.
Yeah, it's a good plan.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilman.
And then the camera can
Okay.
zoom in on it too? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it.
In 2020, a parcel came to us with a willing seller on 19 Sunset Beach Road. And I passed out some aerial visuals with historic photos on this, if you'd like these as well. And if you look to the left, 19 Sunset Beach Road is that square parcel that's located, that you can see on the site plan
It's
here.
right here.
Now, right, you see that one? Everybody orientated? And to the right, there is a, if you look at the bottom photo, there is a parcel that has a pond on it. And I'd like everybody just to take a look at the progression of the historic photos. This pond was actually dug at some point between 1962 and 1976, back in the day when you could do such things, I guess. At any rate, that is a parcel that was purchased by the Community Preservation Fund in 2002. And so that is a 5.4 acre parcel that existed. We purchased 19 Sunset Beach Road, which is a 4.1 acre parcel. And so what the Village of North Haven is doing is an assemblage of properties that were purchased by the Community Preservation Fund and is making this a public park. Again, in the way of background, just for your own knowledge, in 2003, we purchased the lot to the right. It's a flag lot sort of thing. We purchased that for $760,000, pretty good deal. 19 Sunset Beach Road, the town of Southampton purchased that for $2.7 million, quite a bit more. We negotiated that in 2020, came to an agreement in 2021. Resolution to purchase that was in August of 2021, and the closing was in October of 2021. One of the stipulations that the town put in agreement with the village, on the Village of North Haven, in agreement with the Village of North Haven, were that the structures were going to be taken down. The town did not want to, at that time, we didn't necessarily want to steward the structures on this property. Significant also, if you take a look at the bottom photo, on the east side, which is the right-hand side, is the Tamaridge Estate. That is roughly 100 acres of preserved land between the Nature Conservancy, Suffolk County, and the town of Southampton. And then to the west, to the left, there is about 16 acres of land, wetlands that have been preserved by the Village of North Haven through a subdivision process. So this park, or this acquisition, was somewhat of a greenway link between the Tamaridge Estate on the east side and the village parcels on the west side. So last summer, last spring, we met with the mayor about what was happening in the park and how this was being developed. And there were significant community concern, well documented in the papers and meetings. We had 2 public meetings, right, Chris? One was here and one was...
Actually, we had 2 in 2022, and then you had 2 in 2023.
Right. When I say we, collectively, the town and the village. And the village has their own
2023,
meetings
there
as
were
well.
2, yes.
So just like in the way of background, so we had public meetings. One was here at Town Hall, and the other was at the Village of North Haven. We heard from the community on this plan, on the surrounding area and the concerns of the community. And at that time, we would take a step back, and then we would let our Community Preservation Fund, along with the officials from the Village of North Haven, to take over from here. And with that, I'd like to kind of just pass it over to Jackie for the rest of our history with this.
Yes. So I just want to say that we do have an IMA with the village that was executed in 2021, late in 2021. This IMA is for 19 Sunset Beach, which is adjacent to 257 and 235, which are ones to the east and then one to the south. We would like to amend this IMA to include all the properties, so essentially the village can look at this cohesively, because obviously Lovelady Park is only the one just on the east, so it's a little cleanup item that we want to do. We've been working really closely.
Wait, because all the properties are CPF, acquired with CPF
Yes.
funds?
Correct.
Individually at different times?
At different times, correct.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So the one that you see that is fronting on Sunset Beach, that's really Lovelady Powell. That was the newest acquisition by CPF that complements the other 2, which is the flag lot that Tommy John was explaining that has the man-made pond, and then also the Silly Field, which is 235 Ferry Road, which is the bigger one to the south.
And that is 15.4 acres.
Supervisor, if you'd like to take a look.
So there's 3
This area.
IMAs, and we'll combine them all into one?
So we have an IMA only for 19, which is really the Lovelady one. I would like to combine the IMA because the park improvements, span across all properties. There may be future plans for them to do some management to the south. Right now, that is not proposed, but essentially, they're all adjacent to each other and they're interlinked.
I don't understand, if they were purchased with CPF funds, why wouldn't they all each have an IMA already?
Oh, we're just going to combine the IMA to give the village authority.
But
So
do they
there's
already
one-
have IMAs?
They have
All-
one IMA on here.
There
On
were
the
no
19.
IMAs on the other 2
19.
properties from
No.
back in the early days.
Yeah, these ones don't
Un-
have IMAs.
And they were unsigned.
Yeah, and I think some were unexecuted. But
Oh,
we're
so
just
we
gonna
bought
kinda
it,
like
but we
clean it
didn't-
up,
Right.
right?
What's actually?
They were actually reverting back,
Yeah.
What's,
It's been like passive revegetation.
Right.
Can I just, I'm a little
Field
unclear,
here.
are there separate IMAs or is there just one for the one property?
There's one IMA, and then we have another IMA that's for all the open space parcels. Obviously, with the park improvements, it spans definitely across these two properties, which are, east-west of each other. So like in here, like see that aqua blue? Those two properties are where the park improvements are now. We have an IMA, but the IMA is just on 19 Sunset.
Got it. Okay.
Right, and
Okay.
Jackie, when we passed the resolution for 19 Sunset Beach Road, we also included the other parcels with the understanding with the village and the town that they would be developed in conjunction with one another.
Yes. Yeah, so we've been working really closely, and I have to admit, the community is very passionate about these parcels, so we started hearing about it. There was some, concern with taking down the structure, which that kind of was coming to us in February. I have to admit, I was just taking over acting in January, just being brought up to speed on these.
The structure on the east?
Yes, that was the existing house that was required to be demolished, in accordance with the IMA and the purchase. So that was taken down by the village.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. So the village did take down the structure?
We
Yeah.
did take down the
When was
structures,
that?
yes. We took them down in February of 2023.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was discussion, and there was a,
Yeah, that was part of what you were
Is it a standard
going
one,
to do.
or is
This
it,
is, yeah,
is
this
anything,
is the IMA.
yeah, is anything,
Didn't have any
pretty standard?
No,
problems
it's
taking
pretty
it down,
standard,
everything
but it
went well?
requires that the town board approve any activities
It
on
made
the
News
property.
12,
Taking down the structure?
Yeah.
That was part of the arrangement, though.
it was.
Yes.
that was in the IMA, and a few people wanted to pursue preserving the house. So we did pursue preserving the house. We put it up for sale for $1 if someone would come and move it to another
Yeah.
parcel and take it off this CPF land. 2 people were interested. The cost of splitting up the house, of trimming all the trees on Sunset Beach Road, of moving it was prohibitive, so both buyers backed away. And we then talked to, I talked to you and said, all right, we're going to do this. I talked to Jay.
Part of the original plan.
It was part of the original plan, as part of the IMA, and we therefore took down the houses as required. There were 2 structures on the property. One was the main house, which was from the 1800s. It was a farmhouse, and this was a farmland for the Griffith family in the 1800s. And the gentleman who made the man-made pond was Mr. Silly, who had the Silly farm, Silly with a
That's
C,
why.
not an S. Mr. Silly had the farm in Sag Harbor. He also had a dairy farm up the street here, and he had this farm, and he had a bulldozer, and he made a couple of ponds. And he connected it with the culvert that goes under 114. And so it's a tidal pond, and it's brackish water.
Are there outlives in that culvert, do we know?
Bill just asked me that today. I don't know. It's a good question.
That is a good
Alewives.
question. It does have, so now with the culvert that goes under 114, it didn't always have tidal influx, but it now does have tidal influx because of the culvert.
It was clogged for many years.
Yeah.
I used to skate
My
there.
question is also, and this is probably for Jackie, in the IMA, did it stipulate that the village would be removing the structure? Because I'm also, okay,
Yeah.
that's all I want to know. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and that was previously negotiated before my time, but
Okay.
then they had asked for an extension, which was reasonable, so we had given them an extension of time to complete the work.
And
That's
with
pretty
this water
standard.
link,
Yeah.
there's a significant greenway that goes through the village of North Haven from the Tamaridge Estate to the east, and then continuing through Riders Pond and the drainage easements that go through actually your property and connect to Genet Creek. So it's a belt that goes
Right.
through the village of North Haven.
He dug a pond, which happens to be on my property as well, which
Right.
connects to Jeanette Creek, yes.
He was active.
He was busy, Mr. Silly.
Mr. Silly.
Too bad nobody took the structure, but that happens, right? You offer it for basically free, but then the cost to
free.
move it is so expensive. that-
It was not a historic structure.
And this one.
There was a part of the house that was from the 1800s. But then the house was added on, and it was kind of bastardized. So it would have to have been split up into 3 pieces. So a mover would have had to take 3 pieces out, take them to whatever the new parcel was, and then put them back together.
Yeah.
It was $1 million job to
Not
do
worth
all of
it.
that. The
Yeah.
construction, all of the infrastructure needed to be replaced.
And we had those conversations with your predecessor, Mayor Sander, and came to an agreement that this was how
Right.
this was
Yeah.
going to go on that property.
Yep.
Which brings us to.
So then what happened?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, so
Okay.
really, I was receiving periodic complaints. Obviously, there was newspaper articles. You know, the community was, you know, concerned about what was going on here. So as me being like new acting and then officially CPF director, I was kind of exploring the IMAs. The ones for the other parcels were kind of all like looped into like almost like an open space passive IMA, which is also why like the park plan, I would like to spruce up the IMA, and basically they're all assembled, right? So the pathway that they're proposing and the bridge encompasses all of them. And there's possibly a plan to integrate the southern parcel. So, I mean, that just needs little cleanup. But, you know, hearing about this, you know, I was doing research, the public was concerned, but you know, I got periodic phone calls, seeing this in the paper. People are just kind of like, what's happening? So I think what happened is, you know, Tommy John and I, we met with the mayor, and I was just looking over. So we had a meeting with Mayor Fiore in May. And I was just kind of like, hey, we just really need to kind of know what the concept here is and what are you going to do here.
May of '23.
May of 2020.
May of 23, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, can we just get a basic site plan, take a look at this, see what you're gonna do? You know, they were getting a survey done, which is really the first step. So Squires and Holden prepared the survey for them in the summer. But then, you know, there was activity, and I don't know exactly when the activity took place. We started getting concerned emails and calls like around February. That was more about the structure. But then probably around April, there was some earth moving and some clearing that was taking place. So without having a plan, you know, I wasn't able to answer the public's concerns. So essentially, we just set up a meeting to be like, well, what's the plan here? We understand that you have an IMA. So they had a concept plan that was given out in August. So, you know, this was essentially the original concept plan, which was with some pathways, a pollinator garden, and a bridge. One of the sticking points with the public hearings that we had, I think it was August 10th and August 24th, was the bridge and also clearing in the north. So after hearing from the public in August 10th and August 24th, we came to an agreement, you know, the Lovelady parcel has really already been cleared and was improved residentially. So that is appropriate to have more park amenities, you know, more native plantings, a pollinator garden. We also just want there to be safe parking. So we asked for a small pull-up area. Rather than roadside parking, I asked for a small parking area, interior, but what better place to do than where the residential disturbance was already there. So we asked for a small parking area, which you can see, let's see, Chris, does this have the parking area? Yep.
This has everything. This is
So
not
essentially, the
final
house is
plan.
right here, but the driveway already came in between two large Norway maples. So we just asked them to provide a parking area in the area of disturbance. Pull people off the road, have a few parking spaces, and we asked for
Including an ADA space.
including an ADA. But again, one of the sticking points, just for you guys to understand, is additional disturbance that happened over the summer, spring, summer, and then there was a concern with additional clearing to the north. In meeting with the mayor and his council, Scott
Jackie, if I could
Middleton-
interject
Sure.
here. To the north, we're referring to the north part of the
This is the
pond.
north side of the pond.
And
This is the south
it's
side
about,
of the
excuse
pond.
me, it's
Yeah.
about 3.2 acres. And
Mhm.
that has, you know, revegetated over time as the farm field has grown back. And this is the plan that we saw in the summer, so if you would.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, you know, understanding that the southern portion, essentially where that flag comes in, that was the old estate driveway. So people were already utilizing that for a walking path. It's actually very nice. It just, you know, it needed to be resurfaced. It needs a little, you know, TLC. But essentially, you know, one of the sticking points was the bridge. But, you know, this is the village's concept plan. They have a park, you know, what's the name of the park association, the 501c3?
This park that we're,
The 501c3 non-for-profit.
it's the North Haven Parks and Trails Association.
So they have an association that
We
was
have a
working.
501.
Yeah, so they were working on the concept plan, but I feel like a lot of people in the summer last year didn't see what the concept plan was, so everyone kind of had questions. So that's when it was, you know, the concept plan was presented in August 10th and then August 24th to the public. Like Tommy John said, we had one meeting here to make it easier for all town residents to attend, and then we had one in North Haven. But, I mean, we heard from a lot of concerned citizens about what they want to see. So a lot of them were concerned with the bridge, and a lot of them were concerned with additional clearing to the north. So as we...
Another concern we heard was the development as the plan was being developed, right? As the plan was being formed and it was being made concurrently. So that's why we asked for a plan to
So some.
develop the park.
Some
Plan
activity
first,
was
develop the
taking
park.
place.
So,
RCA was dropped off, there was 2 pathways that were kind of being, cleared, with trucks like kind of coming in from either side. Just people were like, well, what is this? Why is there clearing going on? Why is there
Yeah,
clearing to the
because
Well,
south?
this looks like
Yeah.
the existing buffer to the north is supposed to stay.
Yeah, and so that's the majority of it, but it's also
We'll get to
supposed to
that.
be it was to be supplemented. So we came to an agreement essentially that if you really want the bridge, just show us that you have the money and the plan to build it, right? Because this is public land, so we just want to make sure, but also, take into consideration that this has tidal influx. So this is not going to just be like a sleepy bridge, this is going to have tidal impact. So we just wanted it to be engineered properly. But after those meetings, we met with counsel to the village, Scott Middleton, and we came up with an MOU, which is, we worked really hard on this with Scott, just so that everyone understands what we're anticipating here and what we're gonna have. So this MOU was finalized, I think, in late November. But it takes into consideration, what the village's, concept and plans are. It does include the bridge, but essentially this stipulates that we really want to leave the north alone. If you're going to have the bridge, that's fine, but it will be more like a passive nature trail in the north. And then basically play on the strengths of the property, that it has native vegetation there. And then there's been historic disturbance along the south where the driveway was and where the house previously was. So that's more appropriate to improve more like a manicured park.
And are they
And
gonna-
that's where they're going to show the pollinator garden. They were considering like a mulching and a composting area for educational purposes. But essentially, I think this was the concept plan from August. So this was what was presented originally to the public. And really, like, for some of them, it was the first time they were seeing this. So, we took their comments into consideration and just, we're trying to have a nice balance here. Work on the strengths of the property, leave the north native as much as possible. And then we did get preliminary site plans. We got a request from the village in February to
Wait, so
remove-
after November, it seemed like everything had been decided upon?
Yeah, so this
we were
really.
waiting for the plan.
Yeah, this is really just kind of like, this is what we expect. This is a nice, and you guys are happy to share this with you.
I just looked at it. But
This is the MO,
if they
yeah.
do the bridge, who's gonna steward the bridge? Who's gonna take care of it?
Well, so that's the thing.
That should be in the MO.
Yes.
And yeah,
So
who's
they're
gonna take care?
responsible for that. So
That should be in there.
we're working on the structure where the 501c3 essentially is doing a lot of fundraising. They want to have a plan, obviously, to do full and final fundraising. But a lot of this will be handled with donations. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure the bridge is built safely. It can handle the tidal influx that happens. And obviously, it's safe,
And
right?
they have to get all the permits and non-treated wood
Yeah.
and flow through for the decking.
Yeah, so.
versus-
Yes.
So, and then the plans that are printed before you that say preliminary, we just received those on April 18th. That finally has the bridge design on it. I have to admit, I haven't been able to look at it closely because I was in meetings for most of
I
the
did
last
give
month.
you that when you came out to see us back in March.
Yeah,
early
and so,
March.
so this is what I got from Mayor Fury, and, he was showing, to do, and I'll go back, because from late November, obviously till February, we were talking, but we didn't receive really anything in form of a plan. This is kind of a working copy from my meeting with Mayor Fury, and this was in probably like early March, I think.
This was early March, yes.
Yeah, and then I got revisions to this. There was a couple species, like native species, that I was kind of like, probably not appropriate, like maybe look for a substitute. But, like 85% of the species that they were proposing is fine. But I did ask them if you can see that like large, heavy red. I was like, well, why are we, I was like, the whole concept was to keep the north native. I was like, why are we, disturbing all of that? I understand maybe pulling out some invasives. So the invasive species request that we received in early February was asking to remove mile a minute, which we support, and we do our own mile a minute invasive removal in the summer, and multiflora rose, which multiflora rose has really repopulated over this whole thing. So I just asked him, can we please make it more native? I'm not really opposed to select hand removal of the invasive species, which is why we ended up giving approval in late March, right before Easter, to allow them to move forward with the mile a minute and the multiflora rose. Although I just had some hesitation on the Phragmites, just because it does have tidal influx and we were getting so many severe storms during that time that I'd rather kind of look at that a little more closely. But we did give them approval for the multiflora rose and the mile a minute. But I had asked them basically, like, if it's going to be north of the trail and, you know, like, and it's not in a sensitive wetland area, let's add to that native area and add to the space that is not, you know.
Don't you have to remove the invasives before you can add natives, or they're just gonna get choked out?
Yeah, so that was why the time was of the essence. So we had met with him, I think we met in probably the Friday, I think it was almost like March 15th, and I think then the site plan was revised March 18th.
Yes.
The one, yeah. So then I had taken a look at that. I was having a little trouble with my email, so my storage was like getting really high, but I just resolved it this week, so
But
I'm excited
I
about
did
that.
resend it to you.
You did, and he resent, I said,
Yes.
unfortunately, I didn't see it, and then he resent it to me, and I talked to the engineer in March, and he was like, I'm good with the pathway plan, but he's like, I'm still working on the final design for the bridge. So that's what we have now, as of April 18th, the plans that you have before you, we have a plan that shows the construction of the bridge.
Right.
So Jackie, as far as invasive species, one of the things that we asked from the village was a 5-year conservation and management plan for, you know, various species. And then earlier this year, we got a request to remove invasive species
Phragmites.
from the pink area on the, Phragmites, Milo vine. Did we receive, because I know treatment of invasive species needs to be longitudinal.
Yeah.
Right, you can't, it's not just a 1-year project, you have to keep at it.
Yeah.
And so have we received any kind of
We have
longitudinal
not,
plan?
we have not
No.
received a management, a conservation management plan to date.
Or
but-
at least specific to this, like what's gonna happen
No.
next year, or,
We have
you
not
know,
submitted
really,
it. No.
this year when
No.
the stuff
No,
grows
we had the
back.
request, and
It's-
obviously it was, February, March, so they're looking to, take use of the time that landscape companies aren't busy so that they could do it. So, I met with Chris twice on site. We met at the village. Dan joined us for that one, and we were just really trying to be like, all right, let's like get this together.
So did that
Um,
happen? Did the invasives get pulled?
So, I have to admit, I don't know.
Part of my discussion.
Can we let the mayor speak?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
that's
need
just-
to get a couple of answers and,
I would
because we've
just
been
like him
on
to be able
this.
to present like we do with everybody else, and then we can ask questions.
Yeah, I would like that.
I
too.
understand, and I know you brought the mayor forward with this, but, we've been on this for quite some time,
3
so.
years.
I understand that, but
So-
he's been sitting here now for, over a half an hour waiting to present, and I think we should just give him the,
One other question that I have, and this is to the mayor or Jackie, where it says replanting of native species. Was there a timetable set on that after the removal of?
Not exactly, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, not to my knowledge. But obviously, the mile a minute will have to be done, they were thinking of doing it in the early spring. It's not, the mile a minute has not really come up. It grows annually and it drops seeds, so they could have removed the dry vine, and most of the work would have been the multiflora rose, which we gave them permission to do. I'll let
And we
Mayor
have done
Fiore, I'll let Mayor Fiore talk to that. But we haven't gotten like a time frame. Obviously, mile a minute will be kind of consistently through the spring, summer, and early fall. Multiflora rose, it's multiflora rose, you can identify it pretty easily most times of the year, so I'll let
Yeah,
Chris-
tell us about
Chris
your
speak to
vision.
that.
Thanks,
Yes.
Jackie.
Okay,
You're welcome.
so this particular map shows the big field of 15 acres, the smaller field of 6 acres, Lovelady's property of 4 acres, okay? As Tommy John mentioned, this was acquired in 2021. We signed the IMA in 2021. I went to Lisa Combrick, who was the CPF director at the time. We did a sketch of what we wanted to do. Important to note, this driveway, which is a maple tree lined driveway, is from the 20s. The Barclay Estate, which is the big estate, if you ever take your boat down to Noyac Bay, it's a big Spanish tiled roof estate that overlooks, it's on the east side of the bay, it overlooks Noyac Bay. Well, this was his driveway that went all the way through what is now West Banks to the house. This was a sugar maple lined driveway, which 100 years later had a lot of damage to it. A lot of the trees were dead. Sandy killed a bunch of the trees with the salt water and the roots. This was inaccessible. This, which was the Silly Farm back in the 50s and 60s, and this is Mr. Silly's pond, which we now call Sebastian Pond, and I'll get to that in a
He
minute.
did not own it.
Pardon me?
He did not own it. He owned the big piece, but just,
All I know is he
it
dug
was
the
a
pond.
farm previous, but
Yeah.
he never owned it, but go on.
All I know is he dug the pond. But this
There
was now, when we took over this land, it was completely overgrown, inaccessible, and loaded with invasives, loaded with ticks. The only animals that lived in here were deer, and an occasional hunter. So we said to Lisa, and then I presented in 2 meetings to the community, this is what we want to do. We want to open this up. We want to clean this path out. We want to replace these trees. We want to make this a true promenade, a true colonnade, which it once was 100 years ago. And we would make a stone path that goes from Ferry Road, which is the road you take up to the Shelter Island Ferry, and Sunset Beach Road. We would want to remove the invasives, because this was all overgrown and inaccessible, remove the invasives from the south side of the pond, which was phase 1. We got Board of Trustees approval to do that, and we got DEC approval to do that. The DEC told us in an email that they had non-jurisdiction over this pond. It was not on their list of jurisdiction.
How are the sugar maples? Are they in good shape, or did you have to replace them?
I would say 60% of them were in good shape. We replaced the other 40%
They're
with smaller trees.
Norway maple.
They're either Norway maples or sugar maples.
Well,
I'm not an arborist.
One's indigenous, the other's
Jackson
invasive.
Dodds is the arborist, and he's the one who actually found us the trees,
Yeah.
donated the trees to us,
Oh,
planted
nice.
the trees, and restored this colonnade. So it's quite beautiful, and people use it all
It
the
looks
time.
nice.
Because
For
of the-
walking? It's just walking?
It's just walking. Oh, well, you could bike, I suppose.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But it's a stone path. So we got the DEC approval via email that it was non-jurisdiction and that we could do, as they said in the email, quote, the village could do as it pleases with this area around this pond. So we got Jackson Dodds and Company to pro bono the removal of all the invasive species. We identified these 2 areas with the dots as areas for revegetation. We planted the lawn here, so it's a 80,000 square foot green lawn. The seed was donated, the work was donated, the trees were donated, the path was donated. We did it all in 4 months, and we did it for nothing, because it was all, I mean, everybody's very generous. Everybody also likes tax deductions, so I understand that, but hey, good for you. Thank you so much for the work. Then we started with phone calls to you saying what's going on, and I'm not sure, and do we really have DEC approval? So I was asked to actually get a hard copy of a letter from the DEC, which I did. We applied to the DEC for something hard rather than soft in the email, and the DEC 3 months later, 3.5 months later, sent us the letter that said, had the exact same phrase, the village can do as it pleases with this land. So we said, okay, fine, we've got this south part done. We have the colonnade finished. This is a DEC jurisdiction pond. We're not gonna touch this pond. Now let's get on with phase 2. So phase 2, and this is where we started with phase 2. And phase 2 would have removed all of the invasive species from the northern side of this pond. Okay, so this part's done, except it hasn't been revegetated
Only
yet.
the invasive.
Only invasive species, which was pretty much, except for the trees that had fallen, it was pretty much all multiflora rose, mile a minute, and Phragmites here along the pond.
And the concern there was the clearing that happened on the south side. And just to
Right,
interject
and
that, because.
and I agree,
and that's-
and we heard
that's
what
something that
people
we heard
said.
loud and clear.
And we said, okay, so people said they don't want it all cleared and they don't want it all revegetated. They kind of like the wild look, and can't you leave this? So we said, well, okay, we could leave it, but we don't want to leave it completely because we want a path that connects with a footbridge and then goes around. So we want a loop path that then connects and goes to the pollinator garden. So I just signed the Monarch Pledge, but this was 2 years ago that we talked about a pollinator garden. And there are a lot of people in the village who are very interested in helping populate the pollinator garden. So here's your parking area, here's your pollinator garden. And we said, okay, fine, let's see what we can do. So I invited Jackie out in February, March, early March, and we said, all right, here's what I want to do. I want to leave the top half of this, which is 45% of this acreage, which is 3 acres. I'm going to leave this completely undisturbed. I won't touch it. We'll just leave the trees fallen, and it's going to be wild, and it's going to be fine, and I think people will like that. I would like to, however, on the dotted area, I would like to revegetate this area, remove Phragmites, remove Mile a Minute, remove Bayberry, Barberry, and remove Multiflora Rose, which was rampant in here. I went back to Jackson Dodds and I said, okay, Jackson, what do you think? How about this hand removal, because you wanted hand removal of the Phragmites. How can we do this, and how can we do this? Are you in the mood to do another pro bono job? He said, yes, I am, but I need to do it while I can, while I don't have customers calling me every 5 minutes. So can we do it in March? So I went to the Board of Trustees for the village, and I said in February, can we have a resolution that we want to propose that we remove Phragmites, Mile a Minute, all the other invasive species from this south side of the path, so that we can start revegetation in spring. And I have a revegetation plan to show you. So the Board of Trustees said, okay, and then you and I walked this. You asked me to take some of this 45% and make it 50%.
There's just like a large area
Okay.
north of the path that
Yeah.
I was like, I understand, like maybe
Right.
10 feet on either side, but like, you know, just kind
So-
of leave as much as you can native.
Can you make the 45% undisturbed more, close to 50%? I said, okay, fine. I went back to my landscape designer, I went back to the engineer, I redid the plan, and we did it 54% undisturbed, 46% revegetated. Thought that would make everybody happy. And I thought it made you happy, I did. So
54% of the northern part?
54%
But
of this whole area,
not of the
okay,
parcel
of this 3
itself.
acres.
I
64,000
mean,
square
I
feet
think
is
this is
undisturbed.
important to note, because there's a significant amount of area that is cleared in this park. So when you quote percentages, you're quoting a percentage
Of
the
3
percentage.
acres. I'm quoting a percentage of these 3
And
acres.
the last remaining wooded area
Of
on the
yeah,
parcel. So
he's quoting a
that's
percentage of the
important to-
northern.
Yes,
to know.
this has been
But go on.
cleared for 100 years. So the Lovelady property has been cleared for 100 years. This was cleared for 100 years, and then it was left to go fallow for 40 years. And now we want to create a space, even though North Haven already has 400 acres of preserved land, either in New York State land, village land, county land, CPF land, town land. We have 400 acres of pristine, undisturbed land. We don't have a park. We don't have a fire department, we don't have a police department, we don't have a church. It's a little village, 2.5 square miles, 900 people, all residential with the exception of Peerless Marine, which is a little marina on 114. That's all we have. So we don't have any way. We have 3 people in our office. This has been somewhat of a burden on us because it's costing us a lot of money that we did not budget for, to do plans, to do Squires and Holden, to do the engineer plans, and to continue to redo the plans. But I think we're at a point right now where everybody is happy with the distribution. So this is 46% of this 3-acre area that Tommy John mentioned. This is 56%. So 56% of this piece north of the pond will remain undisturbed. This part will be revegetated. Like this.
So Mayor, are you saying that you and your board agreed that, you know, the board's comfortable proceeding like this, and see, the Community Preservation Fund director said that it would be all right too with the 54-46 split?
Well, she indicated verbally that, I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't have a.
Yeah, but how
because
long ago was that?
That was last month, that was March.
Yeah, that was like an early to mid.
And we're now to the point where we have,
So then what happened? You know?
So, the February resolution that the board gave us to ask for the removal of the Phragmites, I said, can we remove cut, not remove, just cut. I understand, I'm gonna have to cut them again 9 months from now. but that's okay. I have a plan to do that. We do not want to remove all the Phragmites. It's too expensive, it's too time-consuming, and I think it would be, I don't think it would be necessary. So we want to hand-cut the Phragmites, we want to restore the soil here, and we want to plant, according to this planting plan, all of these native species. Now, we talked about the native species, and you had a problem, you had a question about one or two of them, and I went back to the landscape designer and the arborist, and I changed them. You asked me for Latin names, and I went back to the landscape designer and the arborist, and I put in Latin names. And here is the planting plan. Here's the south part of the pond that we said we wanted to revegetate after 2 years ago when we did this invasive removal.
I just want
Here's-
to, I
yeah.
just want to point out to the board, just so the board knows,
Yes.
that the individual doing the invasive work is Jackson Dodds, who the town also contracts with to do invasive removal. He's very well versed. If you
Oh,
don't know
very.
Jackson, Jackson's mother is Day Dayton.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
and-
Jackson grew up,
Yeah.
Yep.
and
Yeah.
believe me, he wouldn't cut down anything that he's not supposed to, or never hear the end
No,
of
no,
his
no.
mother.
No, he's
But go ahead.
very respectful of,
I think that's an important part to make. This
Yeah.
isn't just some
And
fly-by-night, this is
That's
something
one of the
the town
things,
uses.
like when Mayor Fiore told me that it was Jackson Dodds, I also had a nice phone conversation with Jackson Dodds, explaining the intent
I
and
gave you
saying
his
what we
number.
were reviewing, and, so actually his mom gave me his number.
Yeah.
I gave you.
So you could, I mean, what's the?
You
that's
did,
all-
but I
that's
think at the
point I'm
time my
trying to make
notes
is
weren't there,
You
yeah.
couldn't find a more responsible person to do
Removing
it.
invasive species, of course, is not, there's no real question about that, but there are questions from the community, and you know this, Mayor. People are asking, like, why even touch this at all? We're gonna allow you to put a trail through there and a bridge, like you asked, but to go in and like start clearing out again,
I think it's
and I
painful to have a
understand,
view of the
well,
pond.
is
and I
that,
understand.
should
That's
we,
what we wanted,
So,
yeah.
so we had asked for, and I hope, and you said that you have a plan, right? You just earlier indicated that you have a plan for invasive species management. This
Yes.
isn't just removal, this is management, and they are gonna grow right back.
Oh, I know they're gonna
Phragmites
grow
grow
right
from
back.
rhizomes, and you and Jackson Dot, and everybody knows that, they're growing now. The sprouts are coming up, and to remove them in the winter is, it was just,
I know there was a
question of
debate
what you're
over
gonna
whether
do.
or not mile a minute and multiflora rose and Phragmites could be removed during the cold weather. The landscape designer that we have, Jackson Dodds, who is a licensed arborist with a pristine reputation.
My
and our
question was about the
environmental-
plan.
And our environmental consultant all said, no, this is a fine time to remove all that, so cut them out. You can't get the roots, mile a minute grows back, we know that. Everybody's taking mile a minute out of every one of their shrubs every year. But
What do you mean
let's
you
clean
can't
it
get
out
the
now.
roots?
Pardon me?
You can't, when you hand pull it, you
Well, yeah,
don't
but the
get.
seeds go back down and then it comes back again. I mean, it's
It's very.
terribly
it's-
invasive, yeah.
It's very,
And Phragmites grow from the roots,
Labor
the
intensive.
rhizomes.
And
And there's,
Phragmites.
and believe me, I think there's state money to remove Phragmites.
There's actually, interestingly, that you bring that up, that EC has been given $3 million worth of grant money to provide to people who want to, villages and towns and hamlets who want to remove Phragmites.
Have
So
you
I
applied for
thought
that?
this would be relatively simple. The board said, yes, let's go. I got a $40,000 donation from Jackson Dodds, because that's what it would cost to remove all this. But his condition was that, well, can we do it before I get really busy? Because I can't do it when I get busy. So I thought this is a perfect time to ask for the removal. I got the okay to remove multiflora rose and mile a minute. You did not give me the okay to remove Phragmites.
Phragmites,
To
okay.
your point, Councilman Scavone, yes, there are people who say, I don't know that I want to, but we can't please everyone. We have to please the majority. And the majority of people would love to see revegetation, great native plantings, trees, shrubs, plants, and a view here and here of the pond. The pond that for 50 years they never knew was there because it was completely overgrown.
That is not accurate, but
Okay,
come on.
30
And by the way, a
years.
lot of people
30 years.
are like scared to death about the amount of clearing that is being proposed by this native species removal. And $40,000
It's not
worth.
native species removal, it's.
I'm sorry,
invasive.
invasive
it's
species.
invasive
Right, I
removal.
misspoke, Councilwoman.
Yeah.
But invasive species removal, but that's what you said on the other side, and that got cleared out. But I'm glad there's a revegetation
cleared,
plan.
yeah.
And something that the town has been asking for are plans, park plan, revegetation plan, you know, like what is the longitudinal plan? Not this year, like, you know, as this comes back, how is it going to come back? If you are gonna clear it. $40,000 is a lot of clearing, and you're telling us that you really don't have money from the village to do this. So
I don't
these
have
are the questions that
$40,000,
we asked, these are the questions that the public asked.
I've already,
And Mayor Fiore, we both acknowledged when we walked the site that the original path that was being cut like last summer is really not appropriate because it is very sensitive and it floods. So we don't want the public in that more sensitive, you know, adjacent wetland area. So we both agreed, and he had kind of already, you know, been like, hey, this doesn't work, where we were kind of cutting it and thinking it would work last year. So they pulled it up and away.
it was lower.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was lower.
closer
So
to
I
the
just
dock,
also
yeah.
wanted to bring up, like, it kind of was like starting to be cleared last year. People were kind of concerned because they saw, you know, trucks and clearing and a landscaping crew there. So people were just concerned what was happening. But, you know, with plans and with being able to go through this with Chris, we kind of both agreed, like, it really doesn't make sense to have the path as close to the pond as we once had thought. We really wanted to pull it up to the north. You still get a beautiful view, and I have to admit, there's not as much invasive species closer to the northern portion of the pond, so like that pink area, there's not as much invasive species there just because it does flood. So a lot of the multiflora rose is not as, you know, tolerant of,
To the
you know,
salt,
salts
the
This is
water.
mostly
water flow.
Phragmites.
Yeah.
And it- I
But
have-
there are
The
periodic
multiflora
Phragmites,
rose,
yeah.
and there was a lot of multiflora rose that we just took out within the last 2 weeks. And that was very close to where we have positioned this path. This path is already there, by the way. It's a deer path. It's been there for years. All we're doing is creating a walking path, a stone walking path, basically on the exact same space that the deer have been using.
So that was repositioned when.
Yeah.
We
Yeah, so-
repositioned it because, you know, the last 5 nor'easters,
Was
the
wet.
water level is at a level that we haven't
Well,
seen since Sandy, so.
and that was
we
my
took this-
concern.
Wait a minute, well,
Sorry,
hold on
go
one
ahead.
second. We took this path, which was here on another deer path, and we moved it north
Mm-hmm.
into this.
And that's what you.
And it
were
functions
asked
better, and we
Yeah.
walked the site, and we were like, why
Right.
would you have a path here? You're literally walking through a puddle and very, you know, soft, wet
Well,
ground.
we actually moved that path before we took that walk. This path has been here for a while.
With Phragmites, if you
On the
cut them
plan.
3 years in a row, it slows them way down to almost, you almost got them. You don't have to take the
Yeah,
roots
and
out.
so I understood that time
What
was of the
Jackson told me,
essence.
yes.
Yeah, and then if
And-
you plant other plants around them where you
Yes.
cut them, it'll actually choke them out. And when you do that, you're gonna end up bringing more wildlife into that area. You're gonna have more birds, more
Mm-hmm.
ground animals. So actually, it's a good thing to do.
Monarchs?
You might,
Take the pledge.
I mean,
Right.
I
I did.
honestly,
Yeah.
if we had the funding to remove invasives and replant with natives on CPF properties, I mean, this is like a dream.
What is our
And-
policy for the town? Oh,
and-
sorry.
and then also there's a-
Continue, Bill.
piece of property on Agawam Lake
Yeah.
Pond, which they did the same thing, private homeowner, and he did that, and it's really, you know, I've been to the house a couple of times, and it's really beautiful to walk through. And he has an upper path, and you look down.
Yes.
Nice
So-
that it worked.
Yesterday at
Yeah.
the East End Mayors Association lunch, Joyce, I don't know Joyce's last name.
Know that.
No bad.
Okay. She presented a quick 10-minute presentation, you were there, and she mentioned that there is a reward program for replacing invasives with natives. And she said you can get up to $500 per unit that you plant. So
homeowners.
we have trees, we have shrubbery. I took down her number and I took down her website. I would really like to pursue that. We don't feel that
Chris,
we will
just
be-
so you know, I mean, all
Yeah.
of this, we're not trying to stop you. We're
It-
asking
it feels
for
sometimes like
a
you are.
plan.
Yeah.
That looks like a pretty good
We
plan.
know,
Yeah,
we
a
now, as
longitudinal
of,
plan, and this is
as
the
of-
first
as of
time.
April 18th, we
Right, we now
That's
have a
why I'm here.
plan.
Good plan.
That's why I'm
And,
here.
but, you know, when I say longitudinal, going over a number of years, the Peconic Estuary
Mm-hmm.
Program, the DEC, they would all require a plan to move forward with this. And this is what we are asking for, too.
Well, that's why I.
Jackie, how many other plans like this on IMA properties do we have concrete maintenance plan with funding sources in it?
Actually, it's kind of boilerplate in the IMA that they need to provide that. Whether or not they do provide it or not is another
But so
thing.
like, how many do you
But
think
like,
do?
I mean, like, so Moses Lane has a good one where they actually, the town board asked to show a plan and show that they have capital funding to accomplish the project. A lot of the other ones are more passive, you know, passive
Well, what is
trails.
the policy of the town with respect to invasives on properties that we own? Is there
So
policy?
if the village is managing it and stewarding it, then it would generally be up to them to deal with it. We deal with it on our own on non-IMA
But
properties.
I mean, is it a requirement that anytime there's
it's
an
not-
acquired property, we
It's
have
not
to?
a requirement.
No.
It's
Remove
not a
the
requirement.
invasive.
A lot
No,
of
we
times
would've-
it's left alone, but, you
Uh-huh.
know, this is one that
We
is,
would
you
have
know,
done it here.
obviously
20
very
years ago.
visible from the road. It's in a nice location. We have existing disturbance, and it's gonna be one of the most beautiful parks in North Haven.
was
Like,
gonna
I'm
say, I love
actually
the
very
idea of the
excited
bridge.
about it.
I mean,
the only
I'll just,
park.
because you brought up Moses, I'll just say, I
Yeah.
mean, since I've been on the board,
Mhm.
we've been waiting for something on Moses that we still don't
Yeah.
have, and it's,
Yeah, and so I met with all of them, like, last winter into the spring, and, you know, like, it's one of those things where I'm literally trying to just finalize that plan.
I would love to see something like this for Moses.
Yeah, well, and Moses has, like, a good, you know, it has a good plan, but it just has a few things that they have to field verify, so they were working to go into contract with the village on
It's
that.
important to
One of
note,
the-
Mayor, that we are close. And really, last year, when we had our meetings, you know, we were not. And, you know, one
I
of the
understand
things,
that.
one of the things that our shared constituents really brought up was this, a plan as the park was being developed. And also, you know, as you know, the considerable clearing on the south side of the pond really raised alarms in the community. And so does this as well.
Since the plan has
We-
been developed, are you planning, this was April, right? So, are you planning to do any community
What-
feedback on it, or?
Yes, we want to have one more meeting.
Okay.
At a Board of Trustees meeting.
Okay.
I wanted to have it in February. I was hoping to have it in February, then March, then April.
Yeah.
Now we want to target May, because I promised the residents two things. I promised the residents that we would not use $1 of tax money to actually develop this park. We use our expense line for the park's budget to do consulting, to do environmental consulting, to do, there's an extensive amount of work that the Rayner Group has done from an engineering point of view, and they're doing the bridge. And they're close to a final plan on the bridge. But I promised one thing, and that was no tax money to revegetate this and turn it into a walking, a contemplative, a wonderful place where you could simply go and sit and enjoy nature and do this loop. The second thing that I promised them was that after the two meetings that the CPF and we had in August and September, that I would present a final plan to them in a meeting at Village Hall. And that I would hope to be the May 15th meeting. The reason I'm here is because the clock is ticking. I don't want to lose, I would prefer not to lose another summer. If I can't take out these Phragmites, then I can't go to landscaping companies and ask for donations of all of this material, which Jackson and Sam and Billy Hajek and I feel is something that we could probably accomplish, not easily, but we could accomplish. So we could get probably $300,000 at retail of shrubbery, trees, and plants donated to this park. This bridge is a $200,000 item. There is a very generous, very wealthy person in West Banks who wants to underwrite this bridge. He wants to underwrite it at 150. I didn't tell him got to 200, but there's prevailing wage. So now it's 200. We do feel strongly that we already have $125,000. We can raise another $200,000 easily. Everybody in this village is very generous. Everybody loves the tax deduction. There's no reason. That's why we formed the 501. I would love to be able to remove these and twist Jackson's arm to do it with me soon, so that we can then get to a fundraising plan, and I can show a plan to the residents. I can't fundraise until I have a plan that's been approved.
It sounds
So-
like you already have the approval of the plan from the CPF
No.
department.
think
We
so.
approved the invasive
don't
management.
think
We
so.
just got
Just
the
two
April,
invasives.
we got this plan by
Can they
email.
cut the
April 18th.
Phragmites?
Yeah.
So my invasive memo of approval did not allow for Phragmites. I
Right.
wanted a little bit more information.
Can I see this right here?
It's also because of the season, we were getting so many
Thank you.
large rainstorms. I was concerned that if we cut them and disturbed the shoreline with all of the nor'easters and rainstorms we were having, that it would be to the detriment and cause erosion problems. That was my concern. But, you know, I just need a little more information. I did get like a page letter from Billy Hayek. But I said, hey, multi-floor
I just
roads,
wanna make
mile
a
a minute, like,
comment
go
on that.
for it. I just
Well,
need a
what
little
what
more.
was
I
the
wanna make one
April
comment on that.
18th then?
April 18th is when we just got the preliminary site plan. So they're like really close to being done, but obviously the surveyor put preliminary on them because they're not quite finished.
So how are you going to get the answer about the Phragmites?
Oh, I just
Is
need.
that going
I
to cause
just need-
erosion or?
Well, I just need additional information. At that
Like what?
time,
I
I was
mean-
just concerned because we were getting such heavy rain events
Yeah.
and nor'easters. Obviously, if we're in there and we're removing and hand cutting Phragmite, you're going to
get-
disturb the shoreline. So I was just concerned with the timing of that.
It's a lot of movement.
It's a lot of movement in that vicinity, and when we're having flooding and tidal and storms and rain, we obviously had some pretty severe storms, so.
And
Well, we
I have
had severe
another
storms, but-
question about this right here, just looking at it. Is any swells, because on this green lawn going down to prevent the water from when it sheets off, because you have no buffer there? You should have a buffer.
While you're looking at that, it seems like though,
You
if
should
they're
have a-
not removing, if they're not hand
Yeah.
pulling and they're just cutting, wouldn't
Just
that,
cutting.
that
Yeah, they're still
eliminate
doing a
the
lot of-
concern about the erosion?
What's your
Well,
question?
it's just, there's still,
Just a minute,
there's still
please.
activity along the shoreline, right?
What?
So there's still activity, right? There's still somebody there actively cutting. So I was just concerned at that time to,
And I hear the concern, but I also was listening closely to the arborist and the environmental consultant and the landscape designer, and they said we can do this and not do any disturbance. Now, we had 5 nor'easters this year. Nobody expected 5 nor'easters this year. Okay, so the pond overflowed a little bit on the south side. We had probably 30 feet of overflow, but
Onto the
that's going to
grass.
happen on the grass, yes.
Okay, that's my
Thank you,
question.
Bill. Go ahead.
I don't see any buffer here, and I don't know how you the trustees let you clear this without putting any kind of buffer in there. And plus, it should be swales in here, so when the water comes down, it slows, it goes into the ground instead of going into the pond.
What do you mean by buffer
Buffers,
specifically?
this should not be grass going right to the water. There should be
Well,
like,
there's
you should
shrubbery.
have at
There's
least,
existing shrubbery that goes right to the water.
right
It's
here,
not
well, it
indicated
doesn't
there
show it on
yet.
this plan, this shows
Yeah.
grass right to the pond.
Right, well, that's not,
If you look at the aerial bill, you can see it.
yeah,
Yeah, but
Where's that?
that should
that's
be
the
cleaned.
this,
revegetation
this
plan.
sheet
That's-
on the last one.
That's the
That
reveg
bottom
plan.
is a picture before the
And
clearing.
there is a natural buffer.
That's a good point.
Yeah, how wide is
There's
it?
a
It
natural
should be,
buffer.
it should be, well, it should
Jackie,
be on
you've seen
here.
it.
I can't speak to that.
I've
I
seen
don't
it,
know.
there's periodic vegetation along the south.
Well, it should
There's
be the
some
whole-
pockets where
Yeah, it
it's
should be no
grass
pockets,
that's
should be
there.
go, if,
I
go right
believe they're
there.
trying to accomplish,
Yeah.
benches and a view.
Well,
in
yeah,
certain
we wanted people to
locations.
be able to see the pond.
yeah, well, with a buffer could only be, different plants were 6 inches high, 10 inches high, 12 inches high. It's not,
These are substantial plantings of shrubbery.
yeah,
that
but
are
it
along
it
this
does,
line.
where the grass is, you have to have something between the grass and the pond. You just can't have grass down to the pond.
Okay.
That's
I
like.
mean, even when you go to the Quogue Wildlife Refuge, there are areas where you can
Yeah.
walk directly to
Yeah.
the pond
Yeah.
with a
But-
bench. I
but-
don't think they're talking, right? That there's like,
In that areas, you should
There's
have, like, you
there's
should have
definitely
like,
pockets that were clear.
Yeah.
That are up to the pond's edge. I mean, they're not completely clear,
Right.
there's different
Quogue
little.
Wildlife
There's
Refuge.
little
Yeah.
islands,
A couple of
yeah.
benches
I mean,
here,
Quogue
yes.
Wildlife
but they can
Refuge
put, you can
doesn't
put,
have grass.
you can
up
put
to
other
the
stuff
edge.
down instead of grass, where it goes up to the water, you can put like pine bark down, which will prevent the nutrients from going into the pond.
Right.
Because if that pond gets out of control, you're gonna have like algae city up there.
I mean, if it's
Well,
just
so
something
I
will have-
small.
I
and
will
I have to
have-
low,
admit, we've been
with a
working
bench
really
behind
closely
it.
yeah.
with them.
And I
we're
you have an
really close.
environmentalist background. I mean, it's not like this is just, I just want to bring up to the point of this whole need for a invasive management plan going forward. With the invasives being removed and with the native plants being planted, the worst case scenario, right, is that you have native plants with invasives, which is exactly what you have right now.
And Councilwoman, that would be
Yeah.
a really fine idea, but as I understand it, funding is not in place for the replanting of indigenous plants.
That's
The-
what he
the-
said, they need a plan so they
Right.
can
Can't
fundraise
fundraise.
for
Well,
it.
I know, so we'll
I
get
can
the,
show people
we'll
what
get,
I'm donating to.
we'll get the clearing, but then we won't have the replanting. And that's why a plan with, execution is necessary.
I understand
Yeah.
not being able to fundraise for something that
Yeah.
people aren't, you're not saying that, that you can go to people
Well-
now with this plan and say, this is what we're trying to accomplish and start fundraising, but there is a window for clearing that has to be
that's-
completed by
And, it
somebody
should-
who's donating
it should
$40,000
be noted that
worth of services.
When we did this 2 boards ago, right, no one on this board was, was currently on, and that's not disparaging, it didn't exist. Our negotiations with the Village of North Haven wasn't about, hey, we're gonna do this if we can raise the money, if we can do this. The Village of North Haven had taken responsibility for building out this park. Now, to us, that meant, municipal funding. Your policy is now you're not gonna spend a dime in taxpayers' money, you didn't put anything in the budget on this. So it all
Right.
depends on how much money that can be raised through the 501c3. It's on its 3rd iteration. So as far as plantings getting put back, that's why we want a plan. And that's why, as far as clearing goes, we would want to have those plants replaced in a timely manner.
Well,
And I think that's reasonable to
I
ask.
think we're, I
I
don't
mean,
wanna
right
put-
now,
But again,
it's wooded.
if you clear the invasives, right, and you don't plant, and the invasives come back.
They come back.
You have what you have now.
We
Mayor,
just,
do you have a park fund that
we
you
have a
could
park-
draw from?
We have a 501c3 fund.
No, but I mean, like a park.
We also have a park budget, yes. We have a park budget of about $50,000-$60,000. We have, we are anticipating money coming in from a subdivision, which hopefully will come in this year.
That's what I'm talking
Significant,
about.
I
Yes.
think, Chris, you would put some additional funding in for the maintenance of the park.
And we put
In your
$35,000,
in your capital,
$35,000
in your operating budget, yeah.
for the maintenance of the park. But my frustration is, and I know you said you're not stalling us, but my frustration is that we keep going back to the engineers to redraw this plan. I keep spending a good bit of money on tweaking this plan, and I think there is a tiny bit of micromanagement going on with exactly what we're going to plant, how we're going to plant it, what the name of the plant is.
But it sounds like we're there now.
We're really,
Yeah. I
like,
would
we
hope
got
that we're there,
So, I also
but-
don't appreciate that,
but-
like, I feel like we've gotten so far and now it's a problem. Because
No,
we've been
because-
working really hard.
Because now
to
the
do this.
timing is a
Yeah.
problem. So this is something that I need to do soon if we're going to get the park done for the summer and let people enjoy it for the fall season. I need to get to landscapers.
You want the planting plan
Yeah, I want the
approved.
planting plan approved.
That I got last week.
I want to be able to take out the Phragmites, and I want to be able to say, yes, here's what we're going to do. I would like to put this bridge on a TBD. I'll give you I'll give you every bolt, every nail,
So,
everything about it, as soon as we're ready, but I don't want that to hold up the Phragmites and the planting
So,
plan.
Mayor, it sounds like we're there.
there.
We could be.
We've met. I speak to Mayor Manger, about other CPF matters, and he's expressed to me how sometimes CPF is very tedious with the requirements. It is, and it sounds as if you're getting to the stages that are necessary to move ahead. Right?
Yes, we-
It does
Yeah,
sound.
I
and-
literally just got the plans
So-
last Thursday.
Yeah,
so.
and it
Chris-
takes time for, she just got them last week.
Well, I understand that.
You
Chris?
can't, if we rush it through, it might be a mistake. And I don't think she micromanages, so I take it back. And
I want a
would
really
not-
nice plan, I just want the
I want to see
information
plans with
so
a
that I
buffer
can
and
bring
some
it to you
swell.
guys and everyone's
And I
on the
think,
same page.
if you want to rush, so you have it for the summer, you might make a mistake. I like to see like a swell, some type of buffer there, and I like to look at the plans she got.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way it's gonna be done in 3
Bill,
days.
why don't you go down there and take a look?
Yeah, I go
It's
down
really-
there.
it's really a
I-
nice park.
I drive
Like,
down there
it
all the
is.
time.
It's
And
really,
wanna
One of
stop.
our,
very nice.
one of our first asks of the village was for a site plan. And just recently, we've received a preliminary site plan. And what was added to this by the village, was the clearing of invasive species. And then there was a certain urgency around the clearing of invasive species before we received a site plan, which we asked for respectively
Oh, you
about,
received-
if
yes.
I may,
Yeah.
about a year ago. And in our meetings, we asked for this. In the fall, we asked for this. And then in the beginning part of the year, you're like, well, we need to remove invasive species, and we got to get that done. So we've been consistently asking for a plan. So, please, don't you're adding elements to this, and we were asking for a plan. And if on the plan you said, "Hey, there's invasive species here, we want to remove those too," that would be fine. And then tell us when you're going to replant.
With all due
them.
respect, that plan is a few months old. You have had that plan since Rayner Group did it. They overlaid the site plan onto the Squires and Holden survey. And what we wanted to do, once that site plan was submitted, was start working on taking advantage of pro bono work, presenting this plan to the community for donations, and soliciting landscape companies for free delivery of shrubbery, plants, and trees. That's what we wanted to do.
We didn't
did
have a
all
site
this.
plan, but
We did all
okay.
this in 4 months, and we did it pro bono. We'd like to do a lot of this pro bono and raise $200,000 if we have to for the bridge, for the pollinator garden, and for the parking lot.
And I think the rush was the contractor that was donating $40,000.
Which is
Yeah,
why,
that
which
was-
is why
and that
I
was a bit of the
literally.
rush.
It wasn't a rush
I
to try to
literally-
circumvent the process. It was,
No.
hey,
Yeah.
I have somebody that's gonna do
Yeah.
$40,000.
And I understood that, which
Yeah.
is why I
And-
met with him twice on site.
And that was
Dan and I
February.
met.
That was
It
February.
was March, actually.
No.
But, and
the-
then
The request was February.
The
The
request-
meeting was March.
the request was early February. I said I need a
Yes.
plan to go along with this. The plan then came, I think, I'm looking at it. It was prepared February 20th. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
get it directly after then. They were probably reviewing it internally. Mayor Fiore and I had a meeting in
March, you
early
came out
March.
to the park.
Early March, came out to the
Right.
park.
You
We
asked me to adjust
We asked for the
this.
changes, so this was really like the
Yes.
first time I was seeing it, which was in our meeting. He made the changes, and then I got those changes on March 18th.
Right.
And then I issued approval for the 2 invasive species
Right.
on March 27th. I literally stayed late the day before Easter break so I could get this done for him so he could start.
We've put in a lot of time ourselves, yes,
Yes.
and
But,
money.
but again, we're very close, but there's a reason it says preliminary on this is because it's not quite done, and I think it's mostly the bridge
But
details.
do you need just the bridge details is what you need? So
I really
mean,
think, and so I called Rayner. I've been working with Vinnie Gordiello for like 2 decades. Like I called him and I was like, hey, like how are you doing with the plans? And basically he was like, oh well, I'll send them to you. And I have to admit, I was having trouble with my email, so I didn't get Chris's original large email, but I
Can't
did.
we
I got
approve
these.
it subject to, with the carve out of the bridge
It's a
until
TBD.
that's,
That's what I'm
to be
asking. Can the
determined?
bridge be a TBD, and we'll get
Well,
you
we want to make
everything
sure
you
that the
need.
design, you know what I mean? We
Well,
have to
will
look at the
get you
design.
that.
Yeah.
He's very close to finishing the
but
design.
can we go ahead
What
with
you're,
the plan?
what you're really asking for is the native
Planting.
planting plan, which I have to admit, I just looked over and the species look appropriate. The ones that I had concerns with were removed, so
Were
like,
removed and replaced.
literally, I just got this and
So,
I was looking it over
Jackie,
this
how much
morning.
time needs to pass between removal and planting? So
Not
th-
not very much.
Well, I mean, if it's left, then the invasives come back, and the very thing that we're doing is
Yep.
moot.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
so-
I
and by
mean-
the way, as far as the funding goes, Mayor, if the Village of North Haven said to us in 2021, we're not going to spend a dime on this park, we would have really rethought this entire purchase.
They have donations.
We have donations, and that's.
I mean, you can
that was
see
what
just
we
the,
said
just the entryway
from
with the
very beginning.
trees.
Yeah.
That was a huge, I mean, how much do you think that would have cost
That's
the village?
$100,000. That was $100,000.
It's like they're not doing anything. They're being, as far as I'm concerned, respectful to the constituency to not cost them money for a park and doing it through donations and fundraising.
Well,
How can you fault that?
No, I understand that part, but there's definitely some oversight and resources that the village needs to contribute to any public park.
And they are
And
for
by the way,
maintenance.
We
this
have-
is a public park, and one of the concerns of the very people in your community is that the people who donate the money are the ones that determine what the park looks like. And we've said this in public, and I've said it to you,
No,
and I've
that's-
also said
that's-
it to the people, in the community, and so have you. So people,
Sorry, that's
when it's
patently not true.
donated, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that. So when it's donated to a 501c3 and determined by one person, that's not a public process
I
to
understand
build
that
this
completely.
park out. And if the threshold was, we're not going to spend a dime of public money, to build out a park, and the monies that you did on planning is a problem, but then you're gonna tell us, you're gonna get donations to do. We at least need a site plan for you to follow through this.
do
That
private-
is a
That's
site plan.
important. Right, that we got this year, that we've asked
But we
for.
have it, but that's
This
the
is what I'm
argument, like you're
is
saying
Let's
we
just
have been
move
on
That
forward
we
this
have.
for quite some time. So I'm glad to see a
This-
plan.
This is the
Well, I'm
result
glad you-
of our hard work.
You did not get the plan. I sent the plan to Jackie and Dan and our attorney. I did not send it to you. So the plan has been submitted and you've had it for a short period of time, a month.
And this is, in all fairness, this is the first time the entire board is seeing the plan.
Right.
And Jackie
Well, I
has
wanted
it
to
now,
get
and we're gonna
I
move
wanted to
forward.
get a
and-
final plan and then show it to you guys,
Has the
because it
bill-
requires your.
That's what we
So-
wanted to
Has the
do.
people in the village seen the plan?
The people in the village have seen the plan on the website, and there's this plan that's mounted in the conference room. The plans have been on the website from the very beginning, 3 years ago.
This,
Plans-
the final set of plans?
Yes.
And
This
you
is
had
the
the
fi- Well,
board
we
of
told them it's
trustees
preliminary. We
in
didn't say it's the
February.
final set of plans. We said, this is where we are right now in our discussions with the CPF. But everyone has a view of the website. It has not been in the newspaper. It has not been published anywhere, but it's on the website.
And I'm
it's-
thinking-
And these
And
posters are
I'm
in the-
assuming that once we
conference room.
give the approval for this is the plan, that's when you will then take it to the public.
Well,
Yes,
and you're
at
hoping
the
to
May
do that
15th,
in May 15th.
May
That's what I
15th
would
Is
hope.
meeting.
that, is that a fair?
because the window's
Yeah,
closing.
I have to admit, I wasn't able to review this in the last week. But we've been working really closely, so I'm very familiar with the concept. And really, it's just trying to keep it mostly native on the north, hand selecting the invasives so that we're not going in there with trucks and bulldozers and,
It's all
degrading it.
hand, it's all hand removal.
And, and I have to admit, I had some concerns with a few species, not all of them, just a few. He's now addressed those concerns,
We've
so.
replaced them.
I mean, I looked it over literally this morning, very quickly, before rushing here, and the species are appropriate. But I want to take a little closer look, because I don't, again,
And
I
you
don't
gotta-
want to rush and make a mistake.
Yeah, and you want to make sure there's a buffer. I want to see some type of buffer and swale.
Yeah,
on
there
that
is an
grass.
existing buffer, and I will show you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the plan, should be on that plan.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, that's a planting
Those
plan,
are
Bill.
beautiful,
Yeah.
the plants you've selected.
This is the planting plan in detail.
Yeah, no, and these are
Not
all,
in English.
I had made some suggestions, but these are all now, like, really appropriate plants. When I first looked at it, were they all appropriate? No. There are some that I was like, it's not really appropriate for this location, or.
Because the trouble
but-
with,
They were
Excuse
appropriate
me.
in the eyes of our environmental consultant and our landscape designer and our arborist. But we changed them because you asked me to.
Thank you.
because with this, if they keep this in the file and this is approved like that, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, a new mayor, new board,
Exactly.
they're gonna it'll be all grass the whole way, because they're gonna say, oh, they did this back in,
But I mean, that can be in an RIMA, that all
Yeah.
gets,
Well, and that's the thing too, so I have an
And should be a
IMA
I think,
swale.
for
I think,
19.
I think
You
Bill's,
did,
Bill's
it's
talking
just
to
for
the south
19
of the pond.
census.
Yes.
Bill's talking to the south, that it should be reflected in the plan
Well, so you
before
like
it's
to-
but that's a,
officially
but that's a
adopted.
planting plan
Yeah.
This is a
for the north
planting.
side of the pond.
No, but I think
Bill,
Bill's
you
talking
would like
about
to see a
that.
buffer
Yeah.
shown on the.
South
I
actual
get what
site
Bill's
plan.
saying, it's not a.
So like
it's-
I
you
made a note,
know.
like he wants to see a buffer on the south side
think it's
instead of
fine.
grass right up to
Yes,
it.
and a
It's a
swale.
small
They-
adjustment.
They should put a swale in there, so, it goes up and the water comes down and won't go back up
He's
on
just
it.
concerned
think
that
he
there
would-
wouldn't be like, obviously the water would drain directly into
Yeah.
the.
But he
Just slows it
doesn't
down.
have to, you're not gonna
Yeah, it has to be-
require that he has to pay to have another plan created.
No, it has to be on the
Well,
plan.
I mean,
It has
that,
to be on the
I mean,
plan
that's,
somewhere, so when they
he's
see
just
it.
It's a
asking for it to
planting
be
plan.
noting,
It should be
noted
on the site plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I
where
I
it
kinda like
belongs.
wrote it, like,
On
Yeah.
the site
Yeah.
plan.
buffer.
Because
Which
there
is-
is shrubbery all along here. There's a heavy planting
There's definitely
shrubbery
islands
all
of
along
shrubbery,
here.
and then there's some areas that are fairly.
And where
close
the
to
grass is,
close
the
to
grass,
the
it should be
Bayberry
something
and
else,
sumac.
should be something else, so there's no grass.
When you're just saying there should be a
Pine
native
bark.
buffer, so Chris, what he's saying is that there should be low native plants
Yeah.
in those
These are
areas,
all-
so you can still have a view, but it captures the stormwater
Well,
and
actually,
rainwater
yeah, these are
before it
all
enters the pond.
4-foot high shrubs, so there really isn't any access to the pond here. Right here, there is access to the pond, and this is cleared, yes.
Yeah.
And the lawn goes right down to the pond, and there's a bench right there.
And
that
maybe
should
right
be-
those two areas to the.
That should be
And
indicated.
these
So
two should be
the west.
revegetated.
when
yes.
can we expect this to go from preliminary to
Well,
plan?
as soon as you approve it, we'll take off the word preliminary.
But
That's why it's preliminary, it hasn't
I
been
want to
approved.
see, I want to see, you know, just buffer there, and I don't want to see grass down to the pond. It's
I trust Jackie to
Yeah.
make sure that it is what it
Yeah.
needs to be.
Yeah.
Which is
Me
what we
too.
did. Jackie
Yes.
has been working with,
We don't
Jackie and
really
Dan have
have
been
it.
working with the
And I will-
Village of
I will
North
show
Haven
you the
since
shed.
last summer.
I saw
The
this
buffer
in
that
March,
is
and it's
there.
now the end of April. I mean, we're not trying to hold anything
And
up.
and a swale to be put in.
Okay.
Bill wants a buffer in his
I will
way.
show you the buffer that exists, and I will show you this area where it doesn't exist, and we will talk about what you want to put there.
So
And that
Jackie,
doesn't need to be
what
on
do we
the
need?
planning plan,
No.
it just needs to be on the site.
Yeah.
Right.
it's
So
like-
Jackie, what do we need? for-
So let me look this over. I have to admit, the planting plan is improved. It's looking way better. And then, you know, the site plan, I can, you know, Chris, I can talk to Vinny about the buffer and what, you know, they're looking for, just to make sure it doesn't run directly into the pond.
And you can still
But
put
I
the
do want to
bench
talk to
there.
him
Yeah.
about.
Sorry?
You can still put the bench there. I
Yeah.
think Bill would be
The bench
happy
is
if
right
he
there.
just
The
put
bench is-
something very
Yeah,
low.
I mean,
Well, I
my-
put something very low, so you can't
My
walk into
general
the pond.
concern is the bridge, because the bridge is quite a feature, right? And at the end of the day, this is a bridge that has to be built, it has to withstand the water, it has to
But
withstand the
can't we
tidal
just
flow.
put to be approved? The
Bridge
bridge
separately.
will not be built until it's received
it's
final
approved.
approval from the
Yes.
town.
Because
almost
So we don't have to
done, right?
hold
You
everything
said-
up
Without the
until we
bridge.
get that.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Well, and I-
become a loop trail
And I
until
think
you have
that's
the
what
bridge.
takes a
Right.
little more time to engineer, right? So
Yeah,
which is also
almost
why
done.
that,
I would like to approve the planning plan and the site plan once they make those changes.
Okay.
And then let
The
the
bridge plan is almost
Well-
approved, but I don't know whether it will be approved by you, so it's still preliminary.
Well, in fairness, until we see it
Yeah.
though, Mr. Mayor.
I know,
There's
I
no
know.
way we can comment at this point.
That's why I'm saying, Dan, that just give me a TBD on this, and I will make sure that you are pleased with the construction drawings of the
Because
bridge.
everything else still
Yeah.
works, it just doesn't become a loop trail until you put the bridge.
Yes.
yep.
And does the plan include timing and replanting? You know, revegetation is part and parcel to the removal.
We don't
didn't
have like,
require-
So these
we
are the
don't have like an
questions.
action plan, but I mean,
I don't have a
that's up
timetable.
to, that's up to the mayor,
But
really. That's not
we
for
haven't
me to
I
required
say.
can give you my
timetable
word that
from
we can get
anybody
this
else.
done.
Well,
Excuse me?
Okay.
Sorry.
We haven't, I'm just stating a fact.
this is clearing or hand removing a significant portion of
And
the
if it
property.
grows back, you
And
have to
so
remove it again.
If we're saying revegetation, which is what is being presented here, it has to be done in a timely manner. I mean, that's
Right.
Or
that's
you have to
reasonable.
remove
And
the
you have to
vegetation
trust
department.
me
I'm
that
sorry,
I will
what?
do it in
Or
a
you have
timely
to
manner.
remove the invasives again, it's on them, I mean, if they don't plan it,
So-
and the invasives come back, they have to remove them again before they plant
You
it.
know, another aspect of this is that this has remained here for a number of years. Excuse me, what's that, Councilwoman?
Nothing.
It didn't seem like nothing. But this has been here for a number of years, and so a lot of the question is like, why even disturb it? I know it's invasive, but there seems to be a sense of urgency to go in and like rip this stuff out, but we don't have a
And
revegetation
therein lies the
timetable.
underlying issue, you
It's-
don't want this to go forward.
It's been 3 years. I
What?
don't think we're rushing.
No, I didn't say that at all. I
Yeah.
mean,
It
but
sounds
there's
like it.
significant concern.
Sounds like that to me.
What if, it sounds like the concern being expressed is that there perhaps might not be the funding to do the replanting, but if you were to say, you know what, we will ensure that we'll do that because we do have the park fund money, not that you want to use it, but if you had to, you could, and then reimburse the park fund
Right, I
maybe
could.
when you get the.
Yes.
So then
I could.
everybody's comfortable that there will be the money to do the replacement.
park fund
And I
money,
don't want to touch it,
that's-
but we also have $1,100,000 in reserve. So I could always get the Board of Trustees to approve a temporary transfer of money to cover this. But
Oh, good.
we feel very, very strongly, having had 3 years of conversations with people who are willing to write checks, that we can raise the appropriate amount of money and then some for this plan.
And it sounds like the village is willing to do the replanting in the appropriate timeframe,
The appropriate
in the
timeframe
time where you
frame-
raise the
I
money.
could start next week.
Okay.
And it's funny
If you
because
let
we
me.
just had the Star Aqua Center here and we're moving that project forward with approvals and things, just so that they can raise funding and they can put a plan out to people so that people know what we're giving money for. So
We're really-
this is the same exact thing. We are letting them have a plan so that they can go to the community and ask for funding. We're not asking Star Aqua Center to put up the funds and show us where the money is before they do it. We're understanding of the fact that by having a plan, they have something that they can go to the public with and say, listen, here it is, here's our plan, we have approvals, now we need funding. It's hard to get money from somebody when you don't have an approved plan.
Right, and that is what we've been asking for what, over a year, Mayor?
And here it
I mean,
is.
Well,
that's,
you've
that's
had
fair to
various
say,
plans
and we
that-
just received it, so,
You've
I mean,
had
to
various
really
plans.
respond to that, the Star Aqua Center isn't removing, acres of native vegetation or invasive vegetation without a clear replanting timetable.
I
So,
think- I
I think
think
that's important, that is
It's
important.
also
So-
important to say that you say you didn't have a plan. You had this plan, but you didn't like this plan, and then we had meetings,
Well,
and then we
because it-
changed this
it
plan.
indicated-
So we continue, excuse me one minute. let me
It indicated
just
clearing
finish.
on the north, and you
Yes, it
know
was-
that
it
this has
was-
been an issue.
Well, it wasn't an issue when we did this plan. That's what I'm saying. This has evolved. And now we're not touching the north side. We're only touching the south side because we keep hearing from people and we keep evolving our plan. So now we have this plan, and that's where we want to go. And we want to do it sooner rather than later so that we can raise money, so that we can get landscapers to donate because their inventory is full now. So now is the time to go to Martyrs, now's the time to go to everybody, Summerhill, and ask them for this section, and I'll put a sign there, donated by Summerhill, thank you very much. And we'll get this all done, and we'll get it all done within the next few months if I get the okay to do it. And I need to remove the Phragmites. Those are the three requests. Remove the Phragmites.
Cut.
Give me the okay,
Cut.
and let me
Cut
TBD
them.
this bridge.
Cut them.
When you say
Right.
remove, you're saying
Cut
cut,
So-
the
that'll
fragments.
Yes,
help with
yes,
the.
yes. Remove them from visual,
Yeah.
right, but I'm cutting them, I'm not removing them. Yes. Those are my three requests.
All right, well, that sounds like we're all,
We're
Right.
very
Very
close.
close.
We're very close.
Then on
Thank
May
you for
15th, you go back
the
to,
time to
May
discuss
15th,
this.
I want to present this to the Board of Trustees to get their final sign-off, and the village. And I want people to come to the meeting on Zoom and in person to see this plan and say, this is what we're doing.
And if-
It's not open for discussion on May 15th. This is the plan that
What?
you and we have approved.
I'd like to see open discussion so that people
We're
in
past
your
that.
village.
Bill, they had
They have
discussion, they
that?
had meetings.
Well, we've had four
In
meetings,
February.
and we've had
Four
four meetings of
This
input.
is now the plan that's been
So-
designed, that has been
Right.
approved.
Yes.
That they're saying this is what we're doing.
And this
Because
is
if
what
you
we're
change
doing.
it now, it costs
It
more
had-
money.
I mean, when
Yeah.
you say approved, I mean, we had these meetings last
You had-
summer, and we've been waiting for
In
the
August.
plan, and we got them this spring in conjunction with a invasive species removal and replanting plan. So it kind of like gets mixed up in the soup here, Mayor.
Maybe.
But, and so that's kind of complicating things
Depends on
because
where
we
you
have
look at it.
asked, and this is important for the board to know, from the outset, we have been asking for the site plan. I'm glad that we're almost there. I think it's important, you will certainly get people at your meetings. There's people at this meeting looking at this plan, so all is good with the world, and we'll move forward with it.
It's gonna be a wonderful park.
Yes, it
And I
is.
don't
Oh,
want
yeah,
this
I
to
know.
get lost
Hope I
at
get to
all.
see it.
I want this to be a wonderful park for all town residents and all of North Haven.
We all do.
We're really close.
We're
and
anxious to
You can
raise
tell,
money,
we have this, and now we need some couple
cut
adjustments,
Phragmites,
and then we'll be in
and
good
Then you're all
start
ready to go.
planting native plants.
I mean, I think it's a good thing, I just don't like a couple of things.
All right, so those will
Well,
be.
and
I can
again,
fix those
it's
couple of
subject to
things.
your approval,
Those will be
so
addressed.
I was
Yeah.
hoping to get these plans and then discuss them with you. We've
Thank you,
done that
Jackie, and
today.
we look forward to you.
Thank
guys
you.
Do we
working
need a
together.
resolution?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we need a
Thank you for moving
resolution?
this
Well, let's let
We don't-
Jackie do
Yeah.
her work, and
Yeah,
then
I
we'll put
don't,
something
not, I mean, we
forward.
don't
Usually
need.
do that?
no.
We don't need a resolution.
No, generally,
need
but
a
I would just
resolution.
generally show it to you.
Yeah.
And then I can do a memo that it's been reviewed and approved, that's fine. But,
So what's the
again,
next
there's
step?
some large.
The next
ticket-
step is hopefully you get the go-ahead to go to your May 15th meeting and present it to Village North Haven.
And we need a couple of things on here, like some timing. I mean, there's a couple of
Bill,
things
was
that
there
we
What do you
still
need
want.
from me?
Well,
Yeah,
Bill,
what do you need?
I did wanna ask Bill, like, is
Yeah,
there a
Jackie
buffer, like, how
Communicate,
wide,
I
you know,
guess.
I would say
because,
at
She's just
least-
gonna ask you to put on the plan the two comments.
like, are you
that
looking
Bill-
for like 10
I'm
feet?
gonna put his comments on the plan.
You're
for
the
buffer.
environmentalist, Jackie.
Well-
What do we need?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
generally you have a 100-foot buffer, so
Yeah.
that's not working here.
No, I
But
would say-
generally, just to slow down the
Yeah,
water.
I would say at least 20
It would be
feet.
like
The
10
trustees-
to 20,
Yeah.
of native vegetation. And I have to admit, like, the edge of it is native, but there is some grass that goes very close up to the edge. And obviously, it's beautiful.
But like
There's some
Bill was
benches
You're
saying,
saying
there.
20,
But like-
20 foot?
yeah,
but like you
I
were
thought you
saying,
were
like they
saying
do
like
in
a
Quag
little
Wildlife, could they
Yeah.
put down the chips?
Yep, the chips.
to keep it that open.
Yeah.
So with the removal of invasive
That-
species,
that
right?
slows
I
the
brought up
benefit.
timing, and so the mayor said that there is reserve to do the replanting
Well, I
in,
just-
so there's a
20 feet
window,
from here
like
to
you
the
pull
table.
the, you remove the invasives and the indigenous stuff goes down.
We're half an hour over.
What's that
Yeah.
time?
We
Yeah.
need to move on.
We gotta
No, I
move.
mean, that can
You're
happen
on
really quickly.
time.
They remove the invasives, literally, the landscaping company can come in the next couple days. Like, the
This is
timing
more-
can be quick.
'Cause-
But also,
The
if,
transition can be quick. I did want to
Well-
confirm, though, did they remove the invasives? Yeah.
They removed
Because my
multiflora rose
staff-
and they removed mile a minute. They did not touch the Phragmites, they did not cut the Phragmites.
Okay.
They were also trimming weak limbs on trees over
fine,
the
yeah.
proposed path so that people wouldn't get injured.
Yeah, so we were just saying, you know, like, please consult with an arborist, and if it's over the pathway, we're fine with trimming of, you know, any unhealthy trees or branches, so.
I know you're over time and I'm terribly sorry, but I just need one more minute. Go ahead, time me, okay? Because here's Love Lady, right? Here's the part with the pond, right? This piece of land right here is 1.8 acres in North Haven Point. I have talked to the owner of this land. It is undeveloped, although he does have an approved plan. But he would be willing to sell it to us so that it would be a wonderful buffer just across Sunset Beach Road. And he's going to put it on the market, but I just wanted to mention to you that this could be a lovely extension of the wooded area. It would not be touched, there would not be a path, there would not be a Ferris wheel, there would not be anything there. It would just be woods, just like it is now. And I think we can talk him into a nice price if we can get an appraisal on it. He's willing to sell. And I'd love to add it to our green space.
I am
And thank you.
wholeheartedly in
60
support of
seconds.
that, and I have
Promise.
said that, I just need the contact information
Oh,
for
I
the
know,
owner.
I know. Yeah,
So-
but I've been dealing with his attorney.
Okay, your
so
minute's
even
up.
the contact information for the attorney, so that we can start the
Yes.
process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay?
Excellent.
Thank you for
Yeah.
coming
Thank you for your
in.
time.
you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you to
Thank
the other
you.
members of the
Thank
village
you,
who are here
Jackie
as
and
well.
Jan.
You're welcome.
thank you.
Very good.
We have to, can't get up yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
What were you waiting for that tree?
Sorry, I just know we're over time here.
We sure are.
We got other people waiting.
All right, well,
So funny that I got it.
I know you did. Can't wait to-
We showed on the updates.
Well, does anybody have any updates? I mean, I do have one from yesterday.
I have a couple.
Jackie.
If you could take the
Jackie.
conversation
Jackie.
outside,
Jackie.
Love that.
can we, yeah,
Out you go.
Ow.
Talk outside,
Please finish.
please. We are still meeting.
yeah.
I think that you'd be slapped now.
Yeah. Yeah, you would be, right? Oh, I wanted to take a picture of that. Is that on the website, the planning plan? Because those are really pretty. I wanted to take a picture of the.
Oh.
But do you have those?
The plants?
Yeah.
You want to take a picture of this one?
The plants.
No, the one with the
Oh, with
plants.
the plants?
Yeah.
Yes, that's on the website too.
Okay, I'll just check your website then.
Okay.
Need
I can
some
send
work
you
in my
a
yard.
PDF. I can send it to you. I'll send it to all of you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll just do our quick liaison updates.
Yes.
I mean, I'll say that I had a East End Supervisors and Mayors meeting yesterday, and it was pretty interesting. And Congressman Lalota stopped by and made some remarks, and the county executive came, and he talked about, you know, the different issues that we're all dealing with regionally, and regarding solid waste and transportation and, you know, water quality, and everything he said lined up with what our initiatives are, and he said he stands with us on all those things, so it's great to have his support. And then at the meeting, Legislator Welker presented our Jackie O'Neill with a proclamation. It was the, the Irish American Person of Distinction for Irish American Heritage Month. And highlighted that Jackie's been in government since the year 2000, 4 years in East Hampton, 12 in the Suffolk County Legislature, and 8 in the town of Southampton under Supervisor Schneiderman, and now, her first year here with me, and
Long overdue.
and I
Yes.
had to say that she, best decision I made was, asking her to stay, because she just keeps me on track here, and I'd be lost without her, so.
She's a good gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah,
always
and
smiling
she's,
now.
prioritizes things for me, and it's very helpful, and I appreciate her every day.
That's great.
So, does anybody else have anything they'd like to report on?
Go ahead, Tom.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, Friday, May 17th, we are going to be at the Hampton Bays train station asking the MTA for more sidings, for more service on the East End. That's going to be at 3:45 in the afternoon.
I'll be there.
Is there in fact another, one in Spionk earlier that week?
No,
Did you hear something about that? I thought somebody said something about
Good.
the county executive doing another one, but
Oh, really?
maybe.
I'm good.
Oh, good. I hope you get a good turnout. I know I'll be
Mhm.
there. Thank you.
I'm all set.
No,
Nothing to
okay.
report.
I just have a couple of things. Had Noyak CAC yesterday, met with the folks there in Noyak. Concerns about, speeding and traffic on Noyak Road. I informed them that we've met with, the Highway Department, me and Bill, and we're working on getting a speed monitor over there on Noyak Road and Millstone. The members of the CAC requested that the Highway Department put back the temporary speed monitor that was at the Christian Fellowship. So the Highway Department has informed me that they're going to be working on getting that back there today. So it's really good news. Just the temporary one until we get.
Yeah, I will check with Tom. I asked him a few times about when he's ordering those
Yep.
speed signs.
Yep, I emailed and included you too. So and Mark.
Good.
Also, just want to announce that our the Southampton Town Disability Task Force has issued the resource guide, disability resource guide. It's now available online, which is a really great step forward for our disability task force and our ability to connect residents to special needs services. So I'm really, really proud of Jamie Bowden, as well as Sean Cambridge for working together and making sure that we get that up there, and as well as the members of the task force who all took part in that. So.
Thank you.
Also, just want to acknowledge the Affirmative Action Task Force in our HR department. Juan Becerra led a great diversity training summit on Wednesday. A lot of folks showed up. It was very, it was very nice. There were some nice icebreakers where everybody felt comfortable talking and engaging with one another. It was very well done. And May 1st is our second traffic mitigation and safety task force meeting. It will be held here at Town Hall on May 1st. At 6 p.m. And we'll be hearing from members of the public and also moving forward with a couple of other agenda items during the meeting. So I look forward to seeing some of you there.
Thank you.
We had our first Best Steering Committee meeting on Monday. I actually had to participate via Zoom, but it was a good first meeting. There was a lot of questions raised. We got some good information out of that meeting. We are planning another meeting on, I'm gonna give you the date, May 7th, with a hope to have a public engagement session on May 22nd. I would like to, on that May 7th meeting, allow the public to come in and give us some public input at that meeting. I know we'll have it here again. Because I think it's important to hear from them throughout the process, and I know that we're working on, coming up with zoning, but, when we started this process initially, when we came out with the original battery energy storage code, it was based on NYSERDA's model code. So I think if we are having these meetings and we're meeting with LIPA and NYSERDA, which we should, they should be part of the conversation, I think we're gonna face the same criticism where we came up with a code with NYSERDA, which is right back where we started from. So I think it is important to get the public involved early on, which I know they're raring to go and ready to do. And, that's gonna move forward. And then yesterday, I had a meeting with Kristen Doulos, Tom Houghton, Nick Jimenez, Daryl Browmer, and we met with members of the fishing industry that utilize our Shinnecock commercial dock. We're working through what they want to see the layout as we move forward with the construction of the cell tower there. And I know people that use the beaches are excited about having a cell tower on that side of the the town, so that's important. There was also an emergency communications involved with that tower project. And we are, listening to the fishermen on what they want to see moving forward. I want to thank trustee Ed Warner, who came to the meeting, who provided some very valuable insight. And so we're going to start that up, start our doc committee, and move forward with that, so.
We just approved Tuesday that, awarding the bid, right?
Yes.
On that? Yeah, that's good. And on the best, I mean, so Seth is just gonna, from our planning department, just gonna put something, like a rough outline of how, based on all the comments we had with each other at that meeting, just something on how the code could change, so we'd have something to work with.
That's on Tuesday,
The 7th.
the 7th, at what time?
Six.
So people would
Oh,
know.
no, what time is it?
6 o'clock, no, 1 o'clock.
1, and the next one will be at 6 in the
We're
evening
doing,
to allow
so
people more
just so
opportunity to
everyone's
come.
clear, that May 7th is at 1 PM here, and then we were talking about May 22nd, the public engagement session, having that down in the auditorium with maps, like zoning maps out, so that people could see what potentially we were looking at, where the areas are that are zoned certain ways,
Yeah.
and see where the layout is.
And to one of those meetings that I just happened to see the supervisor, Kathy Burke Gonzalez from East Hampton yesterday, and she said she'd be glad, to come to the meeting, one of those meetings, to also share what they're doing in East Hampton.
Great.
Sounds good?
Yeah. All right, well, we need to get moving. We need to, I move to go into executive session for acquisitions, personnel contracts, litigation, and then close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.